Is this?
We're live.
Hey, Blue Collar Millionaires. We have a special guest today, Michael Byars. Chris and I know him. He is a partner of Acquisitionpreneur. We saw him out in Nashville. I saw him in Vegas as well. He's a great guy. He's going to talk to us about mergers and acquisitions. He's Kyle Malian's partner. A lot of you remember when Kyle was on. Michael, thank you for coming on this morning.
Man, yeah.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity to be on and speak with you guys.
Tell us about where you were when you first started, before you ever knew anything about M&A, and to where you are now, so people can really understand that you don't have to be brought up in the M&A world. You don't have to be brought up in this private equity and venture capitalists and all of this other stuff to get going in the game that you and Kyle play in.
For sure. That's exactly right, guys. I grew up in a small little town in South Carolina of about 12,000 people. Didn't have a whole lot growing up. We had, what we needed, not what we wanted. But, at the age of 19, I started my first business, a tech support business. Started out with, just 2 customers, very, very, very small customers. And, we've grown that till today. We've got about 10,000 endpoints that we service in the field. Wow. I grew up, built that as I was, I did okay in high school. I had a full ride going to Clemson for chemical engineering. I stayed for about a year and a half. And man, that stuff was torture. I didn't want to be in a box every day. So, I kind of dropped out of college when I was 20. At 21, I took the money that I had accumulated through the tech support business and bought my first business.
Hey, hold on one second, Michael. Will you tell the story about the interaction between you and your teacher?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I had an AutoCAD teacher. I had to take AutoCAD for drafting and drawing in college. I took it all through high school, and I was helping my dad draw up my dad was a land surveyor, so I was helping him draw up some of the plats and helping him, on the tech side with the computer stuff. And I was, as I was going along, my dad would let me work and make a little money by drawing his plats, at night, after school, any of that stuff. So as I was going along, it was my AutoCAD teacher's first year as a teacher. So if I wanted to go hang out with my friends or go do different things, I would contract my jobs to him. And, I was letting him make a little money. I was still making a little money in the middle. Everybody was happy my dad got his stuff done. So I'm sitting in class and he goes to tell me, hey, I'm sitting back there goofing off, and he's like, hey, I really need you to pay attention, straighten up, learn what you're doing. If you're going to get out and graduate, graduate in chemical engineering, you'll get out the first year, you'll make $50,000 or $60,000 a year. 4 or 5 years into it, you're going to be making, $70,000 or $80,000 a year. 10 years into it, you'll be making $100,000 a year. You got to straighten up. You got to do what you're doing. And, I just told the guy, hey man, I'm making about $10,000 a month right now doing the stuff I'm doing. I don't want to sit through this torture and take a pay cut. Right. So, his response to me was, well, if I was making all that, I'd just take my stuff and go home and do that. I said, you know what? I think I will. So I put my books in my book bag. I left and I never went back, much to the disappointment of my mother, who was a teacher.
I bet.
She did not think that was near as funny as I did at the time. So
it worked out. So you were 20 years old making $10,000 a month on this business that you had started.
I'd started, correct. Yep.
So then you said you went and bought a business. What made you want to buy a business and not just grow that business? What was the thought process?
I had some people in place in that business that were kind of helping me. And, when I first went and bought a business, I wanted to skip all of the stuff to start with, all that torture from the startup world. well, I got to find a name. I got to find a logo. I got to build a website. I got to, the list is just a gazillion miles long, right? And I wanted to skip all that. I wanted to hop into something that was already cash flowing because, I didn't have the want or the time to go and try to build something again. I wanted to just walk in, buy something that was already cash flowing, that I could already produce revenue and grow it bigger.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I bought that first business that I bought when I was 21. Over the first 2 years, I 15x'd the gross revenue and over 20x'd the net revenue. So I operated it for about 9 years before I decided, maybe I want to go ahead and sell it and try something different. So I did sell it. And about a month later, that was a restaurant. I bought another restaurant because I just couldn't stay out of it. I just wasn't smart enough to get out of that restaurant business at the time. But the second one I bought was a failing restaurant. It wasn't doing, it was losing money, but it had super good potential. It was right there on a lake that's right by us. So I took all the, the operations and the processes that I built up in the first one, and, a lot of the operation and processes that I built up in a tech support company. And I took and bought that one that was failing. I over 30x'd the gross revenue and about 20x the net revenue where they should have been in the first 12 months. I sold it 13 months later.
Wow. That's insane, man.
Yeah, the growth in that.
I got a question for you, Michael, not to cut you off, but the operations for everybody, Michael's like an operations expert. And that's really rare. There's a lot people, operations is the hardest thing. So absolutely. You went to school for a year and a half. How did you figure out operations on your first business, and then to go into a restaurant? That sounds really hard.
It was.
I would not want to go into a restaurant now and try to figure out operations.
Right.
It was super tough with the tech support industry. Something I'd always been interested in. I've always kind of been the nerd of the group. But with the restaurant, it was, going in. When I bought the restaurant, I bought it from a guy that was operating it. He was getting older. And he just needed somebody to come in there, help out, someone that he could train, someone to be moldable. And that's what I did. I went in there, I learned, I was like a sponge, man. Yeah. I sucked it up, and anything that he would teach me, man, I got notebooks upon notebooks of notes and stuff that I made, this worked, this didn't work. How can we tweak this a little bit, see if it'll work better? If it works worse, what else we do?
Are you always just looking for ways to do faster?
I'm always looking for ways to do. It's not necessarily faster, better for the customer. Because I look at it as, at the end of the day, with all of our businesses, if the customer doesn't like what we do, we don't have a business, right?
True. Right.
We might as well shut the doors, because if they don't buy anything, we can't pay the power bill. So I'm always looking for a better experience and a better product for the customer. And a lot of times, if you'll learn and just think about it outside the box, if the customer's getting a better experience, a lot of times it is optimizing and it is faster, which is what makes it a better experience for that customer, right? Yeah. One kind of follows suit to the other.
I like that. I think that's an important concept to remember, because a lot of times we do get away from thinking of what is going to give the better experience for the customer, even for our team members. What is going to give a better experience for our team members? And in the process of that, we end up fixing those efficiency and time issues that we have going on. That was a golden nugget right there.
That's right. You're always reverse engineering it, but from the customer's standpoint. How can you make the experience or the product better for the customer? If you make it better for the customer, it's always going to be better for you. And a lot of that stuff comes with, automation processes. If you're having to give them a deliverable or any stuff like that, if you automate all that stuff, man, it takes out the human error of, I was supposed to send Uncle Bobby an email yesterday and I forgot. If all that's automated, that's out of your hands. You don't have to worry about that anymore, right?
Can you give us an example of where y'all have automated something in one of your businesses so that we can have, some real life experience to pull from there?
I mean, yeah, I could give you a ton of examples because most of that stuff I do. Like, here's a great example. You guys came to the Nashville event. You remember when you got the DocuSign to sign the NDA and and all that stuff? Every bit of that's automated. So when you sign up, it comes in, it automatically sends you out the DocuSign. When you sign the DocuSign, it automatically approves you to get your badge printed. If you remember that whole process.
Yeah.
That solved a lot of the breakdown that we had at some of the prior events on, who was supposed to be there, who was not supposed to be there, who had paid, who hadn't paid, have they signed the NDA? Have they not signed the NDA? It eliminated all those questions because when you sign up, you got the NDA. When you sign the NDA, your badge is available to print. It lets us know all of that. It lets the people working there know all of that. And it solves the problem of, hey, Michael did such and such sign up. Hey, Michael did such and such, sign the NDA. That's one example. That probably saved throughout the process, throughout the whole registration process from Las Vegas to Nashville, that probably saved us, realistically, an hour worth of time for the people we had there running back and forth saying, hey, is this, what's going on here? Is this right? Is this wrong? What do we need to do to fix it? All that stuff is just solved and it's easily accessible.
Is there a particular software that you use often to automate things across different businesses and industries y'all are in?
Yes, it depends on what business and industry, though, what we're doing. We use Monday.com a lot. There's a lot of automations built in there. We use Zapier a ton. Even if you can't automate it in Monday.com, you can use Zapier to automate stuff back and forth. And they work with, 5,000 or 6,000 different programs. So use that. I mean, if we're building lists and stuff, we'll use, there's just dozens of tools out there.
Mike, can you take us through the process of, you and Kyle buy a lot of businesses. I know you do the operations. Do you then go into that business and spend some time, learn it, and then figure out how you're going to set up operations for your team? Like, say, the mailbox purchase. That was a cool purchase. Maybe you could tell us like a deal on, once that deal is done, what do you do over the next 90 days personally, maybe setting up operations and everything?
We both do like business strategy and, most of the stuff to operate. Kyle does a lot of the sales in. I do a lot of the operation, but both of us do strategy. So when we both go and when we buy something, we'll both go in and look at it from a strategic standpoint. What do we need to do? What's going to push the needle fastest? And at that point, we go in and, a lot of this is done in due diligence. So if we do during the due diligence process, I'm always making notes. I can improve this. I can improve that. I can automate this. I can, automate part of this. Some of it's still going to be, hands-on. And we're always looking at all that. And as we go through due diligence, I'm making a list. As soon as we buy the company, like the mailbox company, as soon as we bought it, I had probably, 50 or 60 item hit list. And we went down, you got to change the website. You got to change the emails over to us. You got to change all the utilities. You got to change the rent and stuff will be done at the time of closing. But you've got to change this whole list of stuff. And then, with the mailbox company, they had a little prepaid cell phone. They were taking pictures of people's labels with, and it was good for about 7 or 8 labels and the battery would go dead. It was just an old raggedy piece of junk.
Yeah.
And once they took the pictures, they had to bring it back to the computer, upload the pictures to the computer. After they got them uploaded, then they had to pull them out and print them. So one of the first things we did, we went to the store, purchased them an iPad and a wireless network printer. So as they took the pictures, they automatically sent them to the printer. So when they got done with everything, we started them around in a circle, right? So when they started at the first, they went all the way around, taking the pictures, sent them to the printer. By the time they got to the end, they went and picked up the pictures from the printer because they were already printed, and they started putting them back on the boxes as they go around the first. So we bought them back probably an hour and 15 minutes a day just by doing that little trick.
Made an assembly one.
Yep, we're building out some software now that will buy them back. So there's, in that mailbox business, there's 7 different softwares that we have to use. And a lot of times when we do a transaction, depending on which carrier they're using, like USPS or FedEx, UPS, DHL, any of those type guys, sometimes you have to do a transaction twice. You have to do it in the accounting software. Then you have to do it in the carrier software. And sometime in the carrier software, you have to do the same thing 2 or 3 times. So we're building out a piece of software and using APIs to integrate all that stuff together. You'll do one transaction. That 5 to 7 minute transaction is going to turn into about a 45-second transaction.
Now, do y'all build that out in-house?
Yeah.
And I figured y'all did. So let's say that we don't have an in-house because we're not a Michael Byars and a Kyle Mallian. So who would we go after to build something like that? Because that's huge efficiency if you've got those multiple platforms you have to go in and out of.
Chris, what I would tell you guys is if you're going to build something like that, I would start out with, depending on what your problem is, right? Sure. So that's going to be your main thing. But I would start out with trying to figure out, what you could and couldn't automate through Monday.com or automate through Zapier.
Okay.
A lot of times we can automate 60% of our stuff that we're going to do through that. And the only reason we'll ever build out a software is if we need a ton of API integration. And, with the mailbox deal, we're going to build it out and we'll have a SaaS platform that we can sell to other operators, other like private label mailbox stores. So with building that product out, we're building it out to make our operation more efficient. But we also know that everybody out there that's a white label store, they got the same problems we got, right?
Right. So,
can
you explain what SaaS is?
Software as a service. So we'll build it out as like a licensed software platform where, you pay X amount of dollars a month to use the software.
That's great. Another revenue.
Yeah.
Yep, another revenue stream.
So, Michael, what's the next event you guys are doing? Talk to us about that. We love your events, and I know you. What are you doing one in November?
Yes, sir. We're doing a November 4th, 5th, and 6th. Yep, 4th, 5th, and 6th in Austin, Texas, at the Austin proper. We'll be doing one down there. It'll be a 3-day live event. So
let me ask you this. I know a lot of our audience is in that 100,000 to maybe 300,000 in net profits range that have own their own business. And then some of our audience they're still W-2 and they're looking at this thing saying, man, this sounds interesting that I could buy a company that already would replace my income and I can still have the possibility of scaling it. So I want to talk to the ones that they did their startup. They didn't know of this gold that you and Kyle are speaking about at your conferences. And they're stuck in the truck on the day-to-day and trying to get out so that they can start to work on the business instead of in the business. What would you tell them to help them start that efficiency process where they can really start to manage their business instead of working in it?
I think it's super important for them to automate as much of that stuff as they can. Any of those guys like that that aren't doing any automation, that aren't using softwares for, a lot of their stuff now, spend the money. Don't be scared to spend the money to get the software to be able to, even if it's for tracking, if it's for billing, if it's for any of that stuff, spend the money to use the software that's already been developed. Especially in like the service area businesses, there's a gazillion different service like products that's available. So I would spend the money on that. I would spend the money on, communication platforms internally
What's some of the ones y'all use for your communication?
We use Slack internally,
We use
for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And you can use Zapier to, pipe all the leads back in there coming from whatever CRM you're using. But I mean, like, even if you're using like a Service Fusion or Service Titan or anything like that, you can still use Zapier to populate all that stuff back in. So as soon as they create a new customer, it can automatically come and everyone can see it internally. That way, it's going to solve a lot of problems with, the lady at the front desk calling, Bob out in the truck saying, hey, how about, Sam Smith over there you're supposed to go to? If you're using that software and she can see where you're at, see that you created the invoice or showed up to the job, it's going to save a lot of, time, heartache back and forth because, the guy in the field is the one doing the revenue generating activity.
Right.
And the more time you slow him down or call him and ask him questions that could be answered by populating what he's doing with software, the less you're going to make. Just think about, you guys are both in service business just like, we are.
Right.
Think about if you could buy every one of your guys out in the field 3 hours a week back. I don't know how many guys. I mean, we got probably 130 guys. I mean, do the math, guys. I mean, what if you got an extra 400 hours a week?
Yeah.
I mean, you can really make some money.
It's not only the time, it's it's frustrating when you're out in the field, it's hot, you're sweaty, and you don't have the correct information. I always tell my team that, make it for a 12-year-old. If you're out there and you're on a ladder and you're trying to figure out something, and you got to get that information to that person. What's the unit number? What's the gate code? All this stuff. That is super frustrating. I just went out on Friday. I had the wrong gate code to go look at this thing. I mean, I was sitting out there for 20 minutes trying to time it to another car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Give me the right gate code.
And if you got that, you can pull up in some software with the customer's information. You can text them, you can call them. The person from the office is going to enter that in. It's going to cut down on a lot of problems, right?
Absolutely.
I think that was something to talk about as well, Kevin. Just a reminder to all of these service-based business owners is, the last 2 weeks I've actually been out in the field with my guys, trying to do some training and get our training modules better. I think it's important periodically for your operations manager to go out into the field and experience what your guys on the ground is experiencing, because a lot of times as you scale, there's new problems that are going to happen. So when you built these SOPs and operations in the field work, they may not be 100% at this point, and they may need some tweaking because you'll find some inefficiencies. I think that Undercover Boss TV show kind of showed that, because the bosses are up running these, multi-million-dollar companies, and then all of a sudden they're on ground level technician, and they realize, man, this is really not an environment that's going to keep our employees on board, because of the way we function right now. It's too much stress on them. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot the last 2 weeks, being out in the field and seeing some of our processes.
Yep. And another thing you guys got to think about is, that's why we go to the business when we first buy it. We go spend some time there just to see all those processes. And because, we're never going to be able to see the heartaches and the problems that happen in the day-to-day stuff from sitting behind a desk. It just, it can't happen. And, a lot of times if the employee explains it to you, they don't know what's causing their problem. They just know they got one, right? And in order for us to build out some sort of automation or some way to fix that problem, we've got to go there and see it to be able to kind of structure it for the programmer, structure it for building out some sort of automation, or correctly structure. We've got to thoroughly understand the problem in order to fix the problem, right? Because if not, we're just putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah. So talk about your due diligence process when y'all got LOI accepted on business. I mean, you just mentioned you're going in, communicating with employees. I think that's super important, because they're the ones that's going to give you the real story, because they're not they don't have the benefit of the sale. They're not the broker. They're not the owner. So they're going to tell you the true nitty gritty. So what does that look like from day one? Just kind of where are you listening? Where are you looking? Where are you fact finding?
So when we go into a business, we want to find out what the business owner is doing on a day to day. We want to kind of camp out with him, see what his roles and responsibilities are. We want to go look at any kind of deficits or issues. What's really holding them back at this point. What's going on? What are the employees kind of complaining about? Any kind of value adds we see. Hey, if we tweak this over here, we could get more production, or we could get better revenue, or it's just going to be a better work environment, right? Because that's super important too. We're looking for their values. We want to go sit down and talk to the business owner, see what their line of thinking is. If they're in there, if it's the used car salesman gig, we're just not interested. If they're running around trying to screw everyone over, or trying to be a fast talking salesman, that's a crumbling tower, right? They're never going to have long-term sales. They might have good customers, they might have good cash flow, but they're never going to have recurring sales because they've already screwed the guy previous, right? And he's not going to come back. He's going to tell his friends that, don't go back and do business with those guys. Eventually that pipeline of work is going to run out. It's going to, your reputation always supersedes you, right? We're looking for any kind of digital assets. Do they have email set up? Do they have any kind of automation set up? What is their branding? Do they have branding? What's their website look like? Do they have any funnels built up? What kind of sales that they're having? How are they getting cold leads? Are they getting any warm leads? And if they are, how are they generating sales? We're looking for the location. Are they in a small town? Is there 2 of them in the town? Is there only room for 2 of them in the town? What happens if a third one opens up? How much of that market share are they going to take? How about their competitors? What are their competitors doing that we can see that, is a great idea? Maybe we could start doing to generate more revenue or give the customer a better experience. Is it, I don't know. There's just a ton of different things.
What about your coffee? So I'm coming to mind because I was at your Nashville event, so we got to really hear. And for the viewers, I mean, Michael's trying to condense 3 days worth of content into an hour interview here for you guys. But, the coffee store, you talked about the cars being out to the street in the morning and how you solved that problem. Can you detail that out?
So this is a great time to talk about that because they just got done with a rollout of that yesterday. So with one of the stores that we purchased, the business is a great business. I mean, they had a ton of traffic, and one of the stores has a short drive-through. You can only fit about maybe 5 cars in there. You're backed out in the road. And I used to drive by, and they'd be 2 or 3 cars backed out on the road, but you would see people slow down to get there and pull out in the other lane to go around. So the point of sale software, when we went and looked at it to do due diligence, the point of sale software, you had, as you touched the screen, you had anywhere between 7 and 12 different touches that you had to do to get the process to get one item in an order. And then, if they ordered 3 or 4 items and they had to do little tweaks to the items, I mean, it might take them 3, 4, 5 minutes to punch that order in. At that time, they're still making the drinks. But we took and condensed all that down, went to a different point of sale software where it's about 3 touches, and the whole point of sale process went from 3 to 5 minutes to ringing somebody up to less than 45 seconds. We did that. We also went to handhelds out in the parking lot, and we have a girl out there working the parking lot with the handheld, and kind of like the Chick-fil-A experience, right? Where they come around with an iPad, you order out there, you pay when you get to the window. So we just got implementation done with that yesterday. So, and the rollout has been, I mean, it's been great, and our customers are seeing a better response. They're seeing, faster times in the drive-through. We went from an average 4 to 6 minute customer time to a less than 2-minute customer time, all in, with rolling this system out within the last week.
And I think a lot of people would sit there and think, well, what's 2 minutes? But when you sit there and you look at volume, 2 minutes is massive.
Yeah, but when you're doing 400 customers a day,
Yeah.
that's 800 minutes.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Do
So
the math.
yeah, do the math. And I think that's why you got to know did y'all know this data on how long it was taking a customer to process through, or is that something y'all stood there and started timing?
Stood there and watched it. That's how
Yeah.
we figured it out. Yeah. I was like, ooh, we could make an improvement here, a big improvement,
Do y'all sit in your due diligence, like on site, kind of watching their operations? Is that typically a 24-hour thing, or do y'all sit there for a week and just kind of move in and out? Let's say y'all bought a plumbing business. Did y'all get on the truck and ride with the plumbers to the job site to see how they processed?
No, we didn't do that. Not in that particular business, but in the coffee business, I went there and stayed 3 or 4 days in and out at different times to see what, I went early, I went late, I went midday, to see what the problems were. And those problems in a business like that are always going to be different at different times of the day, right?
Yeah.
So, that's another thing you got to really look at is different times of the day, what's going on at different times of the day.
So I liked your plumbing story on that business, because you had a solopreneur with some techs. He was great at doing his skill set, not so great at actually running the company. How did y'all come in and better that company?
So we went to the software. We helped them get everything lined up with the software. They're using Service Fusion now, but the problem was all of the calls were going to the guy that owned the company's cell phone. He would be under a house doing plumbing work. His phone would ring. He'd have to stop doing what he was doing, and now we put everybody admin people in an office. They do the software. They do all the dispatching. They can see where the people are, the employees. I mean, I think we've got 8 crews now, and, it's a much smoother experience. And, that business has just about doubled over the last probably year and a half. The improvement was massive, man. I mean, it was massive. And, we started keeping a lot of stuff in stock, especially through like Corona, when you guys know how the supply chain was.
Yeah.
Stuff is out of stock that should never be out of stock, but we had the same problems also. We started keeping a lot of stuff in stock. We could do inventory with the software, but the software was the main thing. We're dispatching through the software. We're allowing the customers to call the office number instead of the plumber's direct cell phone. He doesn't have to stop anymore. When he gets out there, he does the job. When he gets back in the truck and he's looking for a next job, it's right there in queue. He doesn't have to, he only calls unless if he has a problem. Right.
I think that's super important. That's kind of Service Fusion for everybody that's listening. And then Michael also mentioned Service Titan. I've got a couple of HVAC companies that use that program. And then me personally, at our disaster cleanup company, we use House Call Pro. But all of these are CRM systems. Yep. They capture the customer's info. They dispatch out to the team. The team gets push alerts. So when they've got a new job, they can put private notes. So we've got an internal communication there about jobs. You mentioned Slack for then internal communication as well. We use GroupMe, and that's how we communicate internally. That's not job related. So if we've got a broke piece of equipment, they put it in there. That way we can make sure our facility manager is able to get it repaired when the truck comes back in. And those have cleaned up, because I remember the days where I was sitting there pushing a one, getting a phone call, say, I'll call you back. Didn't call them back, told them I would show up the next day. And then now getting a phone call saying, hey, are you coming? And then I'm sitting here embarrassed, red faced, because I didn't get it in the calendar. And it's because I didn't have somebody answering my phone.
Right. That's huge.
That's the key. That's the key thing. You gotta run these business like you're actually going to make $1 million one year. And it works like when you're a solopreneur for a little while. But you got to think like, hey, I'm going to do this huge. I did that with the cell phone. I used to answer calls on the roof, and I would like email myself a note or something. I mean, I probably lost so much work. You have to have a dedicated person picking up that. You could use a service if you're small. Answer the phone, set up the system, put it in the CRM for you. You shouldn't be doing any of that if you're out there with your team. I used to do that and lose so much business. And that's why we all know, especially blue collar companies, you call them, what do you get? You get their voicemail. They never call you back, or they do 3 days later and you already fixed the toilet.
Yep.
I had a toilet issue here like 3 months ago. This guy I called on a Saturday. He called me back on a Thursday. Like, do you think I'm sitting around waiting? I told him, bro, I called you on Saturday. He was like, oh, yeah, I was busy and everything. But it's like, you're calling me almost a week later. Crazy.
So I think it's important to build a business. We all do, to build a business to sell. So as a buyer, because you guys are buying these that are in this particular buy box, but then you're also scaling them, and your end goal is to exit them. This is not something you're trying to keep for 20 years and cash flow it, correct?
On a lot of it, that's correct. You know, if it's a bolt-on, or if it's something that applies to, you know, something we got going on. I mean, like, you know, now I started buying rental homes back in probably 14, got about 165 single-family homes and 10 commercial buildings. But as I started buying those, I seen the need for a property management company and a plumbing company and an HVAC company and a GC company. So I could have, you know, repairs. We were doing some fix and flips, you know. So if it's a bolt-on that goes around one of our core businesses that we're going to keep for long term, we probably won't be. But a lot of the stuff that we're doing, like as we buy, like the mailbox company, we're buying that to build and then resell.
So what is a buyer looking at when you have bought this company and you're ready to take it to the market, so these guys can already start their intentional actions on getting ready to sell, if that is their end goal?
Look, if that's their end goal, you know, in my opinion, anything that we do or anything that we buy, I'm always going to build it with the anticipation of selling it. I'm going to build it to where, you know, it's as automated as possible, where, you know, I've got operating procedures for every job role, you know, and they're clearly defined. You know, if I was to hop out of my role today, I could put someone else in as long as they could read, right?
Yeah.
You know, maybe they won't be as efficient to start with, but, you know, have all the daily chores and tasks for everyone, daily, weekly, monthly, for everyone that works there. It's all got to be well documented. You know, the software, if you're using it, you got to be able to, you know, continue using it if it's helping, or if you bought it, or built it, you've got to own the source code, right? So that's super important. You know, it's just like I said to start with, man, it's super important. No matter if you're ever going to sell it or not, it's important to build it with the anticipation of selling it, because you're always going to build a better product. You know, if you're building it to sell, you're never going to get slack, because you're going to say, you know, to yourself, you're always going to be like, well, I mean, if I only, you know, halfway do it today, it's not going to be the quality that, you know, my purchaser is looking for. Yeah. And if you always build it with that in mind, you're always going to build a better business, right?
I agree. Yeah.
That's so important. You know, one of the big reasons I got into your course, I took the virtual course with you guys last January, because I wanted to reverse engineer how to sell my own business. I learned so much. Chris, you probably did. We look at businesses on Biz Buy Sell, and I see so many mistakes that they're making trying to sell that business. And then I've seen what you and Kyle have done as far as when you're trying to package your business for sale. Yep. It's kind of like a good analogy is like a single family home. A lot of these are nice $800,000 houses with like laundry all over the place and like nobody cleaned up before the open house. Right. And then you go in there, you fix everything. I want my house, like everybody knows, when you go to sell your house, it has to be so clean and so good. Right. You got to tell your kids, don't mess anything up. We got people coming over here. Right. But people sell businesses with like stuff all over the ground.
Yep.
That's why. So you can get great deals, but then when you're selling it, you really have to package it like that open house model. And that's what I'm thinking about all the day. I was talking to somebody on my team yesterday. She's like, everything you do is like thinking about that sell now. I said, that's, even if I'm not doing it, I'm going to do it. I have to have it ready for that. So I said, I'm always thinking like 3 years. How long is this contract? All these different things.
Yeah. And, just like when you're talking about that, man, you're building a better business, with, for the internal employee experience, the customer experience. You're building that to ensure that customer comes back, because that customer's worth X on the sale, right?
Exactly.
But even if you don't sell it, the customer's still coming back. The customer's having a better experience. Your employees are having a better experience because you're streamlining a lot of stuff. You're automating stuff. You're making it easier on them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
It's
Man.
win-win all across the board.
For sure.
Well, let me ask you this. You mentioned earlier about the real estate. I know we got real estate guys here. And you said you get bolt-on companies where you see that you're spending a bunch of money. When y'all, so let's say that you buy the house, you got to remodel it. Y'all were buying a bunch, so you're remodeling a bunch. You say, okay, I'm going to get a contracting company purchased. When you purchase that contracting company and you use them on your real estate, how are you billing? Are you billing at normal rates because the money's coming back to you as an owner anyway on the profits, or are you giving discount rates to that rental company?
I'm always billing at normal rates, but I eat off both sides, right?
Right.
So, if I'm going to buy like a bolt-on with a property management company, if I'm going to buy an HVAC company, I'm going to buy a plumbing company, I've got a forestry management and a grading and excavating company. I'm always going to look for the guys that I'm doing the most business with,
Yeah.
You know what their pricing structure is, and if you're looking to buy them, you can look and see how much of their business that you are providing, right?
Yeah.
And you can really reverse engineer that to figure out, if you went away, how much business do they have left? Number one. But number two, how can you, as you're going to scale and grow your business, how will that in fact impact the bottom line of the new business that you're going to purchase, the HVAC company, the plumbing company, any of that stuff, because like I said, you're eating off both plates. You've got to have that company anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a great strategy.
I like that. So,
let's talk about the event again. So you're going to have a 3-day event in Austin.
Yes, sir. Austin, Texas.
You and Kyle are going to talk about all the strategies from soup to nuts.
Yes, sir. We'll go through the who, the what, the where, the when, the why. Why acquisition's over, just start up. 3 days worth of it.
Yeah. And that's like, I think it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Chris and I have been, we highly recommend that. That's like, there's to it. It's all the knowledge you're going to learn. It's the networking. There's guys in there. I talked to one guy yesterday. He's in your inner circle, and he has an LOI on a business. It's a gutter business, Brandon, and he was asking me to bring it on. It looks like it might not work for me. It's a little small, but that's the kind of connections you can make, because you could be a guy in there who might not have the funds to take it down, but you might meet somebody like me who might not have the time to do it, but has the funds and has the know-how to help you vision. It's super powerful. And even guys who send me deals, when they're in the inner circle, or I know they went to those events, the deals are much better structured, right? They're not just like, hey, check this out. And I'm like, I don't know, is this a good deal? They have it really thought out. So spending three days, making the effort to go out there, meeting the people, it's going to pay such huge dividends. And also I know that person really invested in themselves, not only the knowledge, it's just a mental thing too. I say, wow, this guy, he flew out there and he made it happen. You want to be in business with him.
So Michael, in 10 minutes, can you tell us quick what buy box you guys recommend for your students? And then also touch on the creative financing. I know y'all go in depth in this training, but we probably have some folks watching this saying, that's great. Chris, Kyle, Michael, they got cash flow coming in from their current businesses, so they got money they can spend. But the reality is you can be broke and still be able to purchase a business if you've got value you can bring to that business.
Absolutely. So our buy box is, we don't buy anything less than $1 million. But we buy stuff from $1 to $5 million. It's got to have
Revenue.
Gross.
Gross.
Yep. So it's got to have at least a 30% margin, 25 to 30%, because we don't want to buy a job, right? We don't want to buy a $300,000 business that makes $100,000 and there's not enough money to hire a number two or, anyone to help you. So we're trying to go in and buy something that is producing enough revenue to where you can get out of the business. You don't have to go be the guy in the truck every day. You can get out, you can operate it from a high level. You can be able to look for other stuff to buy to be able to add revenue. So like I said, $1 to $5 million, 20 to 30% profit margin. We want them to have 10 employees or more, and we want them to have been in business for 10 years or longer.
Oh, wow.
We're really looking for, somebody that's established. After you get through that first year or two, it's normally the water's kind of smooth out, if that makes sense. We know if they've been in business for 10 years, they're well established in the community or they're well established in whatever business they're in, right? People know them. They've got a lot of stuff going on and it's working for them. Also, we're looking for the businesses that have been in business at least 10 years, because a lot of times there's going to be places we can improve. If they've been in business 10, 15, 20 years, a lot of them haven't adopted technology, right? A lot of them, like the mailbox company that Kevin was talking about. I mean, that website looked like it was made when me and Kevin were born. It was, I think the number on that, the build date on that site was like 94 or 95. I mean, it was old.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of places there that we can go in and we can really improve the business just by doing little stuff, right? Little visual stuff. Not saying that website is going to generate us a ton more revenue, but it's not going to look like Billy the Hillbilly built it either, right?
Right.
So we're really looking for businesses that we can really add value to. Maybe it's, some of the guys are doing some of the stuff that in the business that we need for our other business that would really add value to us that, maybe they can't get out of their own way. Right. So that's kind of the stuff we're looking for too.
What about the creative financing? Give us one technique to purchase a business without having to bring your own cash.
How about consulting for equity? I mean, there's a guy in our inner circle that came in, didn't have much money left. He really invested in himself to be able to get to that first mastermind meeting. Came in, I think he had like $5,000 or $6,000 left to his name, right? Yeah. He had some experience in marketing for float tanks. And, we got to talking to him, kind of coaching him along. Anyway, long story short, he went out and did a consulting for equity deal. And in his first 12 months in that deal, zero money out of pocket, he came in and said, hey, you've got this business. It does well. I think I could. So he was doing some advertising stuff for this guy that he went into business with. He just told him, hey, instead of paying me to do the ads a flat rate plus, any kind of ad spend, let me get on the same side of the table as you. I do a good job. That I can do the work. Instead of that money you were going to pay me, let's take and devote all that money to ad spend. Let me get on the same side of the table as you, and let's really grow this. So he got 30% of that business, and in his first 12 months, he made over $380,000, and it cost him no money to get into it. It's just using your skills to be able to kind of barter, for lack of better terms, with the business owner. What can I do that you don't do as well? And how can I get paid off of my efforts and my skill set?
And it's a win-win for that business owner.
Everybody
Brought in a ton of work he was never going to bring in.
Right. You know,
Dude,
and he doubled that business. That guy that was looking to sell and looking to get out. I mean, he made more last year than he's ever made in any year.
That's incredible. I love that.
Just think outside the box. It's a great
That's life changing.
That's
it.
it.
It happens. Yeah.
In Austin, we'll be teaching 75 different strategies just like that.
That's awesome, man.
75. Michael, it was great having you on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity, guys. Thanks a lot.
You and Kyle got the best event. It's first class. I mean, it's a killer one. Anybody should go to that one.
And you're just genuine guys. I mean, you're great guys. You're not gurus trying to get rich off of a course. You guys are getting rich off of what you're teaching out in the field every day, buying businesses, scaling them, selling them, and you're just sharing the wealth. And I've been extremely impressed. Glad Kevin introduced me to y'all's program. Glad I got the opportunity to be in Nashville. We're going to put the link to your event in our comments. So everybody that's watching this, y'all should check it out. Money well spent. Best ROI is on yourself. And if you're interested at all in businesses, you need to get out to their event.
100%.
I appreciate it, guys.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks a
We'll see
lot.
you blue collar millionaires later.
See you.